I just need a minute. Just a minute. Okay, so what you're telling me is, I finally figured out the millennials, finally figured out how to reach out to them, and now you're telling me that there's a Gen Z? I mean, I just figured out what I should do and how I should do it and where I should do it and what I should do and how... Okay. Gen Z. TikTok. On this episode of the Always Go Big interview podcast, I get to interview Jake Bjorseth, the founder and creator of Trendsettr Media, a Gen Z advertising agency. He's going to share with you why TikTok is the hottest thing, what the difference is between a millennial and a Gen Zer, and fill you in on how you should be engaging them if it fits your business.
Well, people are wondering, like I wonder all the time, is how old are you?
So right now, 20 years old, which, being in the entrepreneurial space for 2 years, I feel a little bit older. I feel like I'll have gray hair probably by November, but yeah, only 20 years old right now.
Give us a little background about how you got started, and I'll frame it like this. You are, Trendsetters Media is a Gen Z company that targets Gen Z.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that background and your background, how it all ties together.
Yeah, certainly. So, kind of a brief overview. In high school, I was always starting businesses, working on side projects, hustles, so on. And that was really something I was passionate about. I knew I wanted to go into the business entrepreneurial space, and particularly within my skill sets in marketing and primarily social media at the time. And what happened was I actually decided to go to college, and in my first month at school, I actually fell and broke my jaw in 7 places. If you've ever broken a bone before, it's no different in the sense of it hurts all the time. You have to put a cast on it, and it takes a while to recover, except it's on your face. So just makes life a little bit more difficult. So the recovery from that, I spent a month essentially not being able to speak, eat, all these really basic things. And it really just allowed me to focus on what it is I wanted to do. And what I really had the realization of, I was involved in the business leadership program at the time, early out into business school. Our company that we were running at the time got accepted into the accelerator program. But I could tell I wanted to take that next step. I wanted to go big, Mm-hmm. And so I decided to launch the agency full time while still somewhat going to school, obviously enrolled, but
Sure.
kind of focusing more on the business. And 9 months later, I found, our team on KCTV5, a local news station, Startland News, getting press, across the country as well, and having some of the biggest companies in Kansas City come and speak with us. So really what we focus on is helping brands connect to Gen Z consumers because there's simply not a voice in the marketplace for us. And it's not to say that older individuals don't know how to reach younger individuals. It's just to say that we probably have a competitive advantage being in the roots, spending time on Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter all the time anyway. So we know both the consumer side and the business side. So that's kind of what we do in terms of how we help businesses and brands.
And for someone like me, a Gen Xer, I just figured out how to communicate to a millennial. Now you're talking about Gen Z. What is the difference between a Gen Z person and a millennial?
It's a really interesting distinction. To start, and because everything stems from this, the biggest difference is that Gen Z doesn't know a world without mobile phone, the internet, social media. And so because of that, their nuances of how they use it is a little bit different. Millennials know both. They know physical, they were introduced to these things, so they're less ingrained with it. We don't know a world without it. Here alongside with the 08-09 recession, it's actually the most financially savvy generation in recent history, which you would never think from these young 18-year-olds. They're starting side hustles, they're starting projects, they're saving up from a very early age. Kind of opposite to millennials. So there's a lot of contradictions between the two. I think we oftentimes group Gen Z as just millennials on steroids when really their behaviors are a little bit
That's fascinating. And you've mentioned TikTok. Now, my daughter sometimes, I don't let them on Snapchat, but they're starting to play around with TikTok. What quick commercial on what TikTok is?
Yeah, so I would say for those that are familiar with Vine, the old 6-second video platform, it's very similar to Vine. Initially, TikTok was called Musically, and so it incorporated elements of music and dancing, and that's kind of where they tap into that social virality, and that's the primary content of the platform. Now what it is vertical, full screen, 15-second primarily videos. So you can go up to 15. You can also go to 60 seconds. Most go up to about 15.
Ah, I see. And did you or Sam Lister's group win that TikTok challenge? What happened there?
Yeah, we haven't heard. Well, that's a good question. I haven't seen their TikTok yet.
Okay.
And so the reason that came to be was actually Jacoby Holland's visual communication lead at McDonald's commented on my post and said, "Hey, let's do a TikTok dance challenge."
Nice.
Work related. And so then we kind of sent that out, and then I challenged Jacoby and Sam. I haven't seen Sam's yet. I'm sure he'll shoot me a text when that's up. But yeah, he's been investing some time into that platform. We have as well. And so it's really, really interesting to see us as like primarily on LinkedIn, then transfer to the most consumable. It's like the exact opposite audience. Now we're trying to hit like 12-year-olds.
Love it. Love it. So when did you realize that video has to be a part of your personal brand?
The biggest thing that I push is depth. In terms of when I discovered that, I think this is one of those Gen Z things where it's just always been the case. Mm-hmm. You know, we prefer, whenever I'm learning, like obviously learning stuff in school, I would go to YouTube to learn it. I wouldn't bring out my textbook. Yeah. I would, in terms of the content I consume, it would be video content, not, written. I still read books from time to time, but yeah, would I rather watch a Netflix show 100%, as most would. So it's really just, I started understanding the depth that video has, as well as, I could spend all day, doing photo and written, but it really doesn't say and show the emotion behind what I'm trying to promote.
Are you seeing an uptick? I've talked to Sam Lister, I've talked to Shay Rowbottom, Jackie Hermes, all of them swear to this. Revenue comes. Now they're like you where the videos, they're not selling. They're just telling a story. Yep. And then people are coming in and saying, how can you help me? Have you found video do that for yourself and your business?
Yeah, so we actually drive 95% of all of our business through the LinkedIn platform alone, which is as a result of organic video content pushed out. So it is directly correlated with revenue, and for us, it's our main revenue generator. Now, I will say, I don't think people take into account the other aspects of social media. I think a lot of times we just promote content and don't do the other things around it to actually connect it to the bottom line. I think when I create content a lot, I get looped in this category of being like a content creator, or like the buzzword of like an influencer, which I wouldn't even categorize myself as. Right. When in reality, I'm just trying to drive revenue for our agency, and that's just how we do it. And so I think some people treat it as they pander to the likes, the comments, and I know how that works. I know how to make a viral video on LinkedIn, but it's not going to connect to our bottom line. So I more so like staying focused in what's actually going to connect to our bottom line. So when you go through and see who's actually engaging with my content, it's not random people that are just consuming it that aren't going to connect to our revenue. It's CMOs, marketing directors, co-founders, so on, executives that actually get value from it. So I think that's the biggest piece I would echo. For one, you need that video organic content, but then you also need the messaging, targeting, and social listening behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I believe in the power of video. I believe in the power of a personal brand. I think companies are a logo, and we as individuals are the brand. It's interesting though, when someone says, well, how much sales can you guarantee me? And I look at them and I say, look, I'm in sales, and I'm not guaranteeing you any sales because I don't know your sales process. The video complements your already established process. It's not going to it's not magic here. You still have to do your follow-ups. So that's interesting that you say that. How about when I'm coaching folks on video? My wife just did her first video. We haven't posted it yet. She was scared to death, and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to capture how nervous and scared you are. So it started off with her going, I mean, the nervousness just came through, and everyone that her target is moms. Every mom that has seen it just immediately resonated. Her negative thoughts. I have negative thoughts. How do you overcome, before you're getting ready for a video, how do you overcome some negative thoughts?
With our business model, we're in an agency space. We're in a competitive agency market, being in Kansas City, which has some very large agency players here. Some of the most iconic creative agencies in the world. And so for us, being entirely Gen Z owned and operated, we can't have fears or negative thoughts ever, because it will cripple us. And so we are just so often pushing positivity in everything we do, realistic positivity, not delusion. And so within that, I'm never really thinking about it before a video. I will say that there are definitely times when I'm kind of, I don't want to say it's like almost self-conscious about, lighting. Am I actually giving the right message? Does that really make sense with the audience?
Sure.
But in terms of the negative thoughts, what I think about is the actual impact of it. And that this video is going to get pushed out, and yeah, it's going to have to help revenue, but also the kid that's going to message me and say, oh my gosh, I watched this video and now I know what I need to do. And that's when I'm like, you know what, I can get ego aside from everything. That continues to happen.
That's right. And I don't mean to push on this question. I just know a lot of people that I watch still are scared to death of entering into this realm. Are you saying that the positive thought works? Absolutely. The how is what you're saying, if I'm understanding right, the how you do it is that you think about the end result. Is that kind of what you're talking about? That regardless of where I'm feeling right now, I know it's going to impact others. Is that what you kind of focus on?
Yeah. I think you think about the initial short-term impact that you see, as well as your potential to, blow up overnight, essentially, which, more often than not doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But you put the right video out at the right time, and before you know it, anything can happen once it gets pushed out. And so when you kind of pair those two, and what I also think about too is the end consumer. Are they actually going to care about this? One of the things that I talk about with our team is pushing quantity and quality of message over quality of video, because, we have creative directors here who have worked on, Emmy-nominated productions. Yeah. So they want everything to be ridiculously high quality and perfect, and take a lot of time on it. And what I say is, we can't spend a ton of time on it. We need to just get it out, because the message is going to matter more. And as we continue to do that, that's what we've seen, a lot of success in.
Yeah, it's content. It's the quality of content. Yeah. It's the telling of the story and the emotional connection. So I'm with you on that. How about some real life success stories from people who have followed your advice, or companies that your agency has worked with? Any story you can share?
From a high level perspective, the biggest thing that I've seen when we really start a conversation is the understanding of the opportunity that exists in the marketplace with social media. I think for a lot of businesses and brands, they treat social media as, the icing on the cake, per se, the last 5-10%, something that you have to post on, and I don't think they see that you can connect with millions of your ideal customers and consumers. If you're in B2C, if you're in B2B, you can find the specific individuals you want to communicate with and push value to them at scale, unlike anything we've ever seen before, especially sales-driven companies that really don't enjoy or appreciate the marketing side. So I would say the biggest thing is changing their entire mindset in terms of how they see social media. And that's what happened time and time again.
Totally. So as far as Trendsetters Media goes, what problem does your agency solve?
Yeah, so I think it's the big problem of staying up with today's trends, which is why we call ourselves Trendsetters Media. What's crazy to think about is that Facebook was really only, nationally popular in 2009, 10, maybe. And so now a decade later, there's all these social platforms that are ingrained into everything we do. And we think about TikTok, which has, over 1 billion users right now, several million, hundreds of million daily active users with really high usage rates. That was only really on the scene in the last year. And hardly any brands have even jumped onto the platform. I was going through and looking at all the domains for some of the big fast food chains and some other really popular brands, and they're open. So, it's with that, as well as really understanding, this next generation coming up and what their behaviors and buying purchases are, because it's entirely different than anything we've seen before. They're going to prefer to purchase primarily online. And one of the biggest things I always think about is look at brands like a Bang Energy, like Movement watches and DMT watches, that is, Gymshark. These brands that essentially appear within a 1 to 2 to 3 year span. And before you know it, they are stealing large market share from companies like Nike, from Coca-Cola, PepsiCo.
Right. And
if you're one of those big companies, you have to be wondering, how did this happen? And then for the mid-market players, somewhere between number 10 to 50 to 100 in a particular space, obviously depending on the space, the question is, how are we going to stay relevant over the next decade?
So can Trendsetters Media help a group or a company like a McDonald's that wants to penetrate into TikTok? Or are you more smaller size? What's your perfect customer, would you say?
Yeah, so really we try to work with larger brands. Obviously, being a young agency, we can't go with Fortune 500 overnight. That is obviously our ambition. And we're working with some decent sized businesses now. But yeah, really our ideal clientele is a company like that already has everything out. They understand and they appreciate the marketing space. They simply need us to come in to solve this one niche. And then we handle all 3 parts of strategy, creative, and then social. So we will develop the campaign concept that is going to be built out to, attack and promote this particular campaign that ideally we will build. And then we'll do all the creative development in-house. If we have to work with a production company, we will, but we prefer to do it all of it. And most of the time we do all of it on our own. And then we'll push that to social, where we will manage the actual posting of that content, the listening, the engagement, and obviously give or take depending on the campaign. But yeah, really that's where we can help out the most is, a company like McDonald's wanting to improve their reach for 12 to 18-year-olds who are going to be the next large, consumer demographic, and get that brand LTV going.
Yeah. I'll make it happen. I'll call my connections at McDonald's. I'm just kidding. So two more questions. One, there are no vowels in your name for branding's sake. Share that reason.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I couldn't. There's no particular answer. More so, it's a branding play. Because right now people get confused by it a little bit, and people misspell my email sometimes, which always pains me. And it runs into more issues than not.
Sure.
But we're really about building a brand, and that's kind of the vision we see for the future. And so with that in mind, we just want it to be synonymous with kind of our name.
Very cool. I will let my wife know because she wanted me to ask that question. And then last question. So do you think the Chiefs will meet the Seahawks in the Super Bowl?
I don't know about the Seahawks. I know the Chiefs will be there this year. The Chiefs will be in the Super Bowl this year, assuming, and I was at the game last year against the Patriots. Just, if you remember that game when D Ford was offside, they throw and we pick them off and we're gonna win.
Yeah.
No one in the stadium could hear the ref. So we were all out mad celebrating for like 5 minutes. Like they had to tell us to be quiet. They didn't know what was going on. And then I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? Yeah. And they tell us, and I'm like, yep, we lost. Just all the energy out of the stadium. And so this year we're ready to get back to it with our MVP Pat.
Well, hey, man, I really appreciate everything that you've shared with us. I'm going to let you get back to your day. And remember, in life and in business, never go small, always go big. Thanks a lot, Jake.
Thank you.